Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Human in Me podcast. You are here with your boy Mpomaswakle, and I am joined by Ndamulelo. I say
What's
something.
up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
I was about to complain. Why are you not saying anything now? Yeah, I hope your week has been great so far.
Hope
And
you enjoyed your week.
yeah, I've got nothing to complain about.
I enjoyed mine as well.
You enjoyed yours, yeah. When we talk about enjoying, we basically mean working. So so that should be understood. We are not talking about the normal, the usual enjoying of things, but for us it's just hitting those milestones and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so today we are doing the fifth episode
Yes, sir.
on conformity, and we are going to try to relate what we are going to talk about to what we've been talking about so far, on the last
Mm-hmm.
four episodes.
Last 4 episodes.
Fuck,
Yes.
we're on the fifth episode. We're moving. Okay, so, oh yeah, it was yesterday. So yesterday, as I was preparing for the podcast,
Uh-huh.
I was reading this other book called, what is it called? The Social Animal. The Social Animal.
Wow.
And the chapter 2 focuses on conformity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I was reading there,
What's the author of the book?
fuck, I forgot the guy's name. I think okay, now I'll
Yeah, you probably put it in the link
yeah,
on the
I should
description.
probably put down the link on the description. So well, during the whole thing, when I was busy writing, the book actually opens up with a scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what happens is that people are on Broad Street. There's this
Mm-hmm.
other street in New York called Broad Street. So there's one guy, for some reason, who was running, right? So this guy obviously must have been late for something. And then another person was running, on the other side of the road. And then there was a third person running. So
Okay.
I don't know what happened,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, people seeing that three guys are running,
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously from different parts of the street, that they kind of got worried that okay, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So people started running one by one, one by one, one by one,
Damn.
one by one, because they thought something was happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after a few minutes, the entire street was running.
Damn.
Literally everyone was running. People were actually running away from something, but they were not sure whether the thing they're running from was coming,
Uh-huh.
because close to Broad Street, according to the scenario in the in the book, right? So
Uh-huh.
the author actually took that part from another book, you know. So he was just trying to show us why conformity, why we conform, right? So with everyone running, they started asking each other along the way, "Oh, so what's going on?
Exactly.
Why are you running?"
Mm-hmm.
Because they were wondering. There's nothing happening, but everybody seems to be running. So
Uh-huh.
they started asking, "Why are you guys running?" And some people are like, "Why are you even asking this question? You should just be running," you know. And then this other old woman started mentioning that the dam must have broke.
Oh.
So with the dam, breaking, there's water coming into the city. So that's basically the thing that made the whole thing worse. That people were actually running because they thought something was happening, you know. And that is a rather simple demonstration of why we conform, for safety reasons. Safety reasons. Part of the reason why we conform, because if you look at back in the days, like back before Homo sapiens came into the picture, even when Homo sapiens were got into the picture, you needed to do what the people in the group were doing, so that they don't kick
Mm-hmm.
you out.
Mm-hmm.
You have to follow the rules of the. And amazingly enough,
Part of survival.
it's part of survival. So that's why those people were running. it's all embedded in you wanting to survive,
That's
you
true.
know. So you are more likely to do what people in the group that you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself
Mm-hmm.
in do, because you don't want to risk the being kicked out of the group because you're not doing
That's
what
true.
everybody else is doing and you're not following the rules and all that shit, you know. So with
It's also linked with staying in tune with the times and
yeah.
yeah, being aware. You know, it's why trends are so popular with people
Mm-hmm.
and fashion and everything that's new. It's why updates come up
Yeah.
because people need to feel like they have a grip on what's going on. I
Mm-mm.
mean, on one end, it leaves people open to manipulation and makes them vulnerable.
Yep.
But on the other, it's also crucial. That's why adults listen to the news and watch the radio. And yeah, even though the it might be used to try and manipulate the minds of the people and keep them in
Mm.
a negative, lower state.
Yeah, and like the another thing about this whole thing called conformity is that
It's a double-edged sword.
yeah, it is a double-edged sword because you can conform, but it might not be working out for you, and then you can choose to be an individualist,
Mm-hmm.
and that still comes at a price because
Exactly.
if
And
you
that puts you
choose
in a lot
to
of danger as well.
exactly it puts you in a lot of danger. There's one example that he used in the book where he said that um well his argument was that there's nothing wrong. Okay, he basically tried to balance, keep like introduce a balance between conformity and individualism, right? Saying that co- conformity in itself is not that bad, and individualism also is not that bad,
That's
but
true.
both of them have disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
And then he used an example about which is the thing that kind of appealed to me the most when I was reading the book,
Mm-hmm.
is that he used an example of a teenager who basically is on a rebellious streak, and then they do the opposite of what their parents want them to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically the thing that a lot of people do. They do the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of what everybody else is doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they start to feel like they they are waking up, they are
Mm-hmm.
breaking away from the chains.
It's true.
But what usually happens is that they only do um, anti conformity. They basically practice anti-conformity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much that they've broken out of the circle, but they're just doing anti-conformity, which is
Uh-huh.
basically the thing that you see with those people at Lower Main
Mm-hmm.
who dress in colors that you don't even know whether it's going
Yeah.
left or right.
Yeah.
For them, they feel like
That's
they
true.
are breaking out of the system, but
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing is that they're just going against
Mm-hmm.
the norm.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing the opposite of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is that this is the thing that he mentioned in the book, right? The problem with that is that there's no independence in that. Just as much as you feel like
That's true. That's true.
there's no independence because you're only doing things
Mm-hmm.
in response to
Mm-hmm.
what other
Mm-hmm.
people are doing. And a lot of people tend to think that when you're doing some things that are
Yeah.
outside of the norm, you're basically
Damn.
becoming more independent, but you're not really becoming more independent. What's basically happening is that you are being anti-conformist.
That's true. It's still
And I was like,
dependent.
you see, because your actions are dependent on what everybody
Exactly.
else is doing. So that really did appeal to me the most in the book, because I felt like if people could realize that just because you're doing things that are opposite to what everybody else is doing doesn't necessarily mean that you've gained your independence,
Mm-hmm.
because you are susceptible to doing things that
Yeah.
other that things that are anti what everybody else is doing, and that's really not productive in a way for you. So
Yeah, and it also plays the light on the word conformity because when you hear the word conformity, it has most times it has a negative connotation.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it has to do with being sheep and
yeah.
not thinking for yourself and all that. But there's basically, yeah, there's a negative and positive, up and down side.
And when you say that, when people think about conformity, they start thinking, sheeps and all that all that stuff. This guy actually substituted the word conformity
Mm-hmm.
with being a team player, and then he took the word individualism with deviate. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think the word is deviate. So a deviate is someone who deviates from
Mm-hmm.
the word deviate in itself has a negative connotation,
Mm-hmm.
but the individualism part of it doesn't
Exactly.
have a negative
It's true.
connotation. And then another thing is that conformity, like you just said, has a
Mm-hmm.
negative connotation, but as soon as you start talking about a team player,
Mm-hmm.
then it has a positive connotation. And when you said that, it kind of reminded me of the fact that, um, to a certain degree, conformity is good for what it's good for.
That's true.
Individualism is good for what it's good for.
And I think they work best together, basically.
Yeah, they do work best together because you can't go with one.
Yeah.
If you go with one, you are susceptible to coming across things like groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
And then this thing that usually happens in protest, the de-individuation, where
Oh,
you
sure.
are
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you see
You say we are the group, and alone I'm nobody, and all that.
exactly alone you, and then that kind of gets you in a state where you can even kill someone just because you feel like
Exactly.
it was all of us. That's
Mm-hmm.
why when it comes to gangs,
Mm-hmm.
people are more likely to kill or do stupid shit when they are with their gang friends, but when they are walking
Exactly.
alone, it's a different story.
Because
So
they
I'm like,
become a coward. It's like, it's also one of the things I noticed back in high school, and there was a lot of bullying and like high school gangs and all that.
mm,
And you would see how notorious and outlandish these people would act in a when they're in a group, and they
yeah,
would be showing off and all badass, and they would kind of get you tripping a little bit, and you go, oh man, I don't want to mess with that guy. And then the same guy, you give him a look, and you're confident, and you're calm, and he's all scared, and
and
you're
the,
like, why are
what,
you scared?
yeah,
It's like, oh, maybe I don't know, you're about to kick his ass or something,
mm,
because you might be a rival gang or something like that. So yeah,
yeah. So
that's a pretty good danger example, because
yeah,
yeah, with gangs, I remember I was watching a program called Street Talk.
mm-hmm,
It's a South African. It's like a little. They have little interviews of, and there's this one where I think it was from a couple of years ago.
mm,
Oh, it's from quite a number of years ago, and there were these two gangs from local areas. I think. Yeah,
local areas where you
local areas like
in the
uh,
Western Cape.
yeah, in the Western Cape. I think, what's one of the areas?
Oh, let me guess. Cape Flats, in Pontyville, Nyanga,
Yeah,
Langa,
Langa, somewhere there.
Mitchell's Plain,
Hmm.
Philippi.
Yeah, there's Philippi in there, so
Okay.
it's like those areas in around there, and basically they talked about it. And the thing is, um, with these gangs, right? The bad thing about conformity, right,
Mm.
and groupthink and not thinking for yourself is that um, when you live in environments like this, it's the reason why you can't. It's like something you can't get out of, right?
Yeah.
Because, for example, there are a lot of movies where guys are American states, United States soldiers chasing Nazis and all that,
Mm-hmm.
and basically, uh, the 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 Nazi government has lost power and all that.
Mm.
Nazi party has lost power and all that, but still these guys are chasing Nazis because, well, they see them as Nazis, right? So the label doesn't go off you, and that's
Mm-mm-mm.
basically what holds you for life in the
Yeah.
gang life, because
Oh, yeah.
you've done certain things, you've killed certain people, and that's what you do. And
Mm.
it's not just that you choose to be in the gang, which is hard to get out of,
Mm-mm.
but basically it's the fact that there's bad blood between you, and the fact that you're hurting people, right?
Yeah.
And even though you choose to leave it, right, but some
It's
people
still
may
there.
still hold the grudge.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like that's the danger of getting pulled in, and not not dealing with stuff, emotional
Mm.
stuff on your own, right?
Mm.
Because sometimes it's kind of like a criminal record, you know.
Yeah,
They
right,
can't.
that's one.
They sometimes they will. You know, some people won't let you go out. Won't let you go. You know,
Mm.
they'll just they'll just cling on to you, and you can never get a clean slate unless you try and move to another place. And
Yeah.
even then, if the labels are not dropped, then you don't have a clean slate. So that's that's a that's a pretty extreme downside example
Mm.
of the
Conformity.
negative conformity side.
Yeah, another thing is that people seem to have a tendency to think that they are not susceptible to conformity.
That's true.
Like you see so many people who consider themselves as people who are not conforming, right? And you see them conforming to other groups, other groups of conforming to other groups of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to wonder that, okay, just because you left this group doesn't necessarily mean that you are free from conformity itself. You're still conforming to the next group that you find
Mm-hmm.
yourself in,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically the reason why I always tell people that you can run away from labels.
Mm-hmm.
Like people who always complain about, hi, why are you labeling me? You can run away from labels,
Uh-huh.
but there's just no way for you to live as a human being without labels.
That's
You
true.
are going to identify as something, one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can think that, oh, just because I stopped identifying as a student, I identify as an entrepreneur, you are off the hook. No, you're not off the hook.
That's
You
true.
just moved from one box to the next
Yeah.
one. So conformity is a thing. It's there. It's not going anywhere
Mm-hmm.
because as human beings, you
We have
know,
to live in packs for social creatures.
that
Mm-hmm.
we have to live in packs, and yeah, we are social creatures. So that's just one another thing that a lot of us need to be aware of, that we are susceptible to conformity, whether you like it or not. You can move away from that group, you're still gonna find yourself in another group.
That's true.
And another one example that actually shows this thing is the thing that happened during the Holocaust, the Holocaust in
Mm-hmm.
Germany, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't believe that they are capable of killing another human being.
Mm-hmm.
All because everybody else is doing the killing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to think that I would never do that, but in actual fact, you would actually do it. Like if you were put in an environment where you know other people were doing the killing, you would
Uh-huh.
end up doing the killing. And the amazing thing about this whole thing is that you would justify, you, you would try to rationalize and justify why you kill people,
Mm-hmm.
even though we both know that killing people is wrong.
Yeah.
But just because you are in an environment that actually forces you to go down that path, then
That's true.
you would basically find yourself conforming to whatever is going on. And with the scenario that I mentioned, right?
Uh-huh.
I actually wanted to do that thing at Upper Campus
Oh
during all
yeah,
week.
exactly. I
During all
remember.
week,
I
I told you
remember.
about it, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Because I feel like this, like especially at UCT, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like people need to realize that more than anybody else, especially in university, not just UCT but other universities. We have different groups in different societies, and every one of them thinks that they are independent of what's going on outside, but they are not. They still fall susceptible to conforming towards the norm at that point.
Uh-huh.
Going to, so the thing that I wanted to do was just to recruit people, maybe close to like 500 people, and go to the commerce building with them.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to do is one group should should like come running
Mm-hmm.
behind. You still remember that passage that's like next to Jameson Hall, that
Mm-hmm.
passage that goes all the way to the back, and then you start.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you still. I
Yeah.
don't. You've been there
Yeah,
when we were
yeah.
doing psych, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and one group would come from that side, and then another group would come from come running from the main street of UCT. And the moment people see that people are coming this side, they are coming that side, everybody's just gonna run.
That's true.
And when they get to the Jamie stop, that's when you'll take out the, what do you call that thing that makes a lot of noise,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them this is what we wanted to show you. That
Oh.
conformity is a thing. We conform. The reason why you guys are running is because you are conforming to what's going on. So you are susceptible to conformity. You're not independent in any way. You are a social being, I mean, like, even when you look at it, a lot of people, when they get to university, they start taking in the beliefs and the values that they find in that environment. Eventually, I mean, like,
That's true,
a lot
that's
of
true.
us, when we come back, when we go home from university, we start feeling like little activists. All of a sudden, we are activists. Yeah. Why do I have to wash the dishes? Why do I have to do? And it's just like, dude. just because you've been to varsity and you've realized, Guti, I mean, like, people like to make us think that the things that we do when we are back home are basically abuse, but they're not.
That's true. That's true.
They are not. I mean, like, as a woman, when your mother teaches you to be clean, dude, that's the best thing she can ever do for
It's
you.
basically the solid preparation of being an adult. It's like
Exactly.
you don't question a lioness for why she's treating her cubs to hunt, and she's teaching them how to catch prey and hunt big animals and all that. And you don't see the lion complaining, "Oh no,
Exactly.
but why do I have to do it this way?"
Young Todd.
Because it's equally as important for your survival, right?
And it's an advantage for women, because if you look at how women tend to do things, sometimes we even live in pig stats, Baba. We literally live in pig stats, all because we were never taught how to,
That's true. That's true.
be domestic and all that kind of stuff. So in a way, it's a benefit for that's why when you walk into a house where there's a woman, you can actually feel it.
That's true.
Dude,
That's
you
true.
can. There's this other chick who stays at Res. Dude, I always tell that woman when I walk into her flat, that whenever I walk into her flat, it feels like home. Dude, like, her bedroom is like, when you walk inside that bedroom, it's like a home. Like, she built herself a home at Res.
Shoot, that's
The short one.
oh.
She literally built a home inside a Res, Baba. When some of us are just coming and going out of our homes, no, for Ene, she's got flowers in there. She's got these big pillows. She's got bedside lamps. Like,
Damn.
dude, like, that's how serious she's taking this whole thing.
Damn.
Like, when you walk into that room, you can actually feel that shit. This is a fucking house, And then you go to, I don't mean to compare, but you go into other girls' rooms, and then when you walk in there, it seems like a tornado just passed through that room, and you're like, damn. And some people are actually, worse, because sometimes you even find some funny smells in there, and you're just like, how can you let your room smell like that when you are a woman?
Yeah, the
How
thing
dare
is,
you?
like, with smells, you usually can't smell yourself sometimes.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, now, if I walk out of my room, right, and then come back, I can tell. If I'm
That's true. When you go
when you
out
come
and in,
back,
yeah,
you can tell, Gutima, something smells, fishy.
That's true.
And then you try to fix it. But if something smells fishy and you just go on as though everything is normal, then something is wrong. Okay, we have to go back to conformity, because we got off. So this is the thing. We just touched on the negatives of conformity. It has its benefits and the negatives. And the benefits, one thing that I feel like people should realize is that we are susceptible to conform. There's just no way around it.
That's true.
So how can we take advantage of that? Like, the mere fact that we know that human beings conform, how can we take advantage of that? So what I think is that, like, especially with high school kids, right? Because they are like an easy example to use. Their lives are not that complex like with adults. Because with us, it's a lot of things in one place. So with high school kids, right? One thing that can be done, or one thing that they can do, is to realize that they are. You have to share the joke, bruh. You have to realize that they have to realize that conformity is a thing, right? But how do we put it to good use? So when you take them and then you put them inside the same room, and then you tell them that, okay, this is what I need you to realize. You can actually make them see the benefits of coping behaviors from one another that are basically going to help them to pass their matric. Because if 5 people in your room, in your class are studying, and then you join them,
Uh-huh.
you know, if enough people are doing that, the entire class is going to end up, going into the whole thing, because now you not studying actually makes you feel like an outsider.
That's
And
true.
because of the need to belong, we end up trying to fit in with the group. But obviously, some people would rationalize their way around, saying that, hi, those people can go and study all alone, and now I'm cool, I'll study when I get home. But that's not the point. The point is that conformity can be used you can use that to your advantage. Well, I just use the high school kids example, because I feel like it's easy to understand. If they can, put their hands together and work towards, doing the same things or copying one another in terms of,
That's true.
productivity and all that stuff,
Mhm.
they will find themselves passing their metric and passing their classes like nobody's business.
That's true.
And if a lot of people are doing that, that simply means that even the conversations that they are going to have are going to be centered around their academics.
Mhm.
That's basically why they are there.
Mhm.
And if they keep on, having conversations with regards to academics, that simply means that as you are sitting there, you start to have certain realizations with regards to what you studied last night. And then you are able to ask for questions. You can, get to realize that, you were studying something and you couldn't understand, and this person is explaining it to somebody else. So you are more likely to be like, can you please explain that to me, because I was working on it yesterday but I couldn't understand, and this person is going to help you. That's just one of the few ways that we can get high school students. Obviously, this thing is not 100% waterproof, but that's just one of the few ways that you can get them to realize that you can use conformity to your advantage. Stop
Damn.
stop trying so hard to be different, especially in the context of high school and all that stuff. Even here at university, people conform to things that they are more interested in. But even when you look at it, we are all here for the same thing, a degree.
Mhm.
You know, we are all working to the same goal, just using different methods. So you just show them good that this is what you can do because of conformity. The need to belong and all that stuff. You can actually take yourself to the, because that's the thing, for the majority of people, the need to belong comes in the sense of um you know doing the things that are not academically related that other students are doing.
Damn.
And that's kind of counterproductive. Like
Mhm.
going to clubs, and I'm not saying people shouldn't go to clubs. If that's your life, then that's cool.
Yeah.
We are not getting involved in what you do, because we are also doing our own thing.
Mhm.
But when you get to varsity, it's easy for you to start clubbing. It's easy for you to start engaging in unprotected sex. It's easy for you to get into the whole thing of hookups and all that shit. And all these things that are counterproductive are easy to do. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the academics, the only thing people ever do is to complain about how difficult course actually is. And that in itself gets people conforming to the current status quo. If you don't complain, you're not one of us. So they all start complaining, course, 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 course. And if you do that, that's the reality that you create for yourself. Because the more you feel like course is difficult, that's the only thing you're going to see, course being difficult. But the moment you change the perspective and be like, it's not that difficult, I can actually do this thing, that's when you are more likely to do it. If you focus on why something is not gonna work, it's definitely
That's true. That's
isn't
true.
gonna work. So to a certain degree, you just have to realize that conformity is a thing, and you can actually use it to your advantage.
Yeah, I think also with having to do with conformity, now that we're adults,
Mm-hmm.
we can realize the reinforcement we get from society in terms of what we conform to.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a kid, most kids, right, it the like sometimes the need to feel like you belong, right, uh, also makes you feel like you have the right to criticize another group of people.
Yeah.
So basically, when someone tries to belong and the reinforcement they get is negative, right? Then that becomes a habit, and then it creates, anxiety and
Yeah.
all that. It's kind of like being in front of people, right? and the reaction you get is a negative one, right?
Mm.
Basically, that becomes a pattern, right?
Mm.
And basically, it's probably what gets you to not be so good of a public speaker, right?
Yeah.
But then you can literally, like, now that like you're aware of conformity, you can literally choose um you can literally choose the right type of reinforcement that will give you your desired result, right?
Mm. Mm.
So basically, I mean, as we were growing up, right, we didn't have much of a choice, right? It's either you try to conform to something, and it's also the reason why people rebel to things, right? Because it's something that has always to them has always given them a negative reinforcement, right? So before you look at the thing that you don't like and it scares you, and
Yeah.
before you choose to rebel from it,
Yeah.
right? You take the time to see the benefits of the behavior,
Mm.
and take away the negative
Aspect of it.
yeah, the negative literally connotations
Uh-huh.
you've associated that behavior with, just because of your past experiences,
Mm.
which is all part of being conscious,
Mm.
and knowing how you feel in certain circumstances. And basically, it's basically being detached from the emotions within a particular situation, and particular habits,
Mm. Mm.
and choosing them depending on where you're going in life and what you want for yourself. And then yeah, you know how to pick properly, so you don't have to rebel against things unnecessarily,
Unnecessarily. Yeah.
because yeah, sometimes you just rebel because you just need to feel like you just need to feel like you know you just need to feel it's kind of like okay, I don't know, it's the only example that can come to my head, right? But basically, there's this I was watching a video by Alexa Taylor something. Yeah, she's big on spirituality and emotional well-being and sexuality, right? She was big on it, I think, a few years ago. And she said she knows a friend of hers who said that she had a lesbian friend who, when she was young, right, just because of women being mothers, right,
Mm.
being jealous of their children and not having their stuff together, right, will choose to not see the truth when it's handed to them, right?
Mm.
So basically, she had a mother who had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend abused the little girl, right? And the little girl
Shit.
told her mother, but then her mother didn't believe her, right?
Mm.
And so the little girl took it upon herself, right? And like things that happen to in childhood are traumas that are really deep and
Yeah.
literally change the trajectory of a complete life
Mm.
until you become an adult. And it's really difficult to snap out of it
Yeah.
because it's really hard, and you have to face it and embrace it, which
Mm.
most people don't do, right? Because that's basically w- not them running away from it is also one of the causes of depression, right?
Mm.
So so this girl was like, I'll never let that happen to me again. So I will re-own the power of my vagina, right? And so it turned her into she gravitated towards more of being a lesbian
Mm.
and being that masculine type of lesbian to heal the pattern, right?
Yeah.
And basically, she was trying to not have that trauma, right?
Mm.
We're all trying to we're all human beings, and we're all trying to feel better. We
Mm.
all
Mm.
want to
Mm.
feel good, right?
Yeah.
That's what human beings are, and life is. It's just a pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
We all want to feel good emotions. And everything a human being does, whether good or evil, is to relieve pressure or tension or trauma, right?
That's
And to
so.
make yourself feel better, right? So that was her way of self-medicating, right?
Mm.
Now, um, as with conformity, right, you can realize that, is the cost of living that kind of life worth it, right? Are you not denying yourself certain dreams, a certain lifestyle?
Mm.
Is it worth it, right? Because what happened to the kid was a trauma, right? And basically, in order to heal something, you just have to experience the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So basically, what the kid needed to experience or needs to experience as an adult is, sex, right? And intercourse, right? That isn't forced, right?
Yeah.
and is meaningful, and the two people are meaningful, right?
Mm.
Now, as an adult, the person can continue to stick with the lesbian life, right? Or they can choose to say, I'm gonna take the initiative, and I'm gonna I'm gonna realize how this came about, right? And if it's what I truly want within me, I'll keep it. But then, if I also want to have a healthy relationship and a family and have children and all that,
Mm.
then I have to find a way to create and believe within myself that I can create a relationship in which it's mutual, and there's like, I don't want to use the word consent, but there's basically, because that's just nonsensical. Not nonsensical, but it has too many crazy connotations.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
That's why I'm
basically,
laughing.
but there's basically like, there's mutual trust between us,
Yeah.
and a true connection, right? And basically, the intercourse is meaningful and pure and not forced, right?
Mm.
And the whole experience, right? That's literally how you change, the negative patterns. Instead of, literally, you find the root.
Yeah.
Instead of rebelling against it, right? Even rebelling against it is good, right? As long as you don't stay in denial of why you're rebelling. Right?
Yeah, you need to know why you do
Exactly.
things that you do.
Because then you can calm down and go, okay, now, okay, we've wasted enough time doing this. Right? Take what you've learned from it, and move back toward a more life that you desire, right? But with conformity, there's a lot of positives that come with conformity. It's like following into a
Let's
system.
let's just use the word being a team player.
Yeah.
Because the more we say conformity, the more someone is sitting there listening and saying like, dude, what the fuck do you want me to do? Conform, But when we use the word team play, because it's very important. Sorry for disturbing you though. It's very important because part of the reason why we have like the kind of civilization that we have today is because of people being team players. They were still conforming to what was is
Yeah.
if you get into
But I think with being a team player, you're more responsible and you literally choose, right?
okay, that's basically where the difference lies. Okay.
Because with conformity, you might secretly not want it, but then you do it anyway because it's what's being done.
It's what's being
what
done.
you've always done,
Yeah.
right? But yeah. Well, what I was gonna say was that you're gonna have to graduate to, practice being a team player and use
Yeah.
conformity for your own advantage and your own
Advantage.
means instead
Yeah.
of conforming for the
the-
sake of conforming, because we know the negative, right?
Yeah.
Now we can't
Detrimental.
we can't get the benefits of what we want by sticking to the negative. We have to move on to the positive and choose to live in the positive side of that conformity. Because if we stick to the negative, I mean, everybody in relationships knows what they want,
Yeah.
what they do not want, right? I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do this. But then when you go, what do I want, right?
They don't know.
You have to start from the point of what do I not want. Then you have to reverse it and you have to go deep and you go, oh man. And then when you get to what you want, right, and what you need in relationships, then it kind of gets you, and your self-esteem kind of gets involved there, and you're like, okay, this is what I want. Do I really deserve that?
Yeah,
that type of stuff. Because you don't feel like you deserve that.
Yeah.
Because you're never saying it explicitly, and it's what gives room to manipulation, because you're not saying what you want, overtly, right? And you don't feel like you deserve it overtly, right? And you don't think that you have enough value to share with someone else, right? Because when you come into it, you think you're going to take from them, right? But basically, it's what you want. So, yeah, that was a bit of a digression. But
we're still on point. The thing is that like there's a point that you mentioned. Why does it look like I forgot the point?
it's about what you want and how you don't feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah. Like when you mentioned the fact that a lot of people know what they don't want,
Mm-hmm.
and when it comes to what they want, they start scratching their heads. Ish, this you tend to see this thing more with women. Ask any woman, what kind of man do you want? They will tell you about all the things that they don't.
Yeah, I can't be with a man who is this and that and this. And then you're like, okay, what kind of man do you want?
And they don't know. That's the thing. Like, they don't know what kind of man do they want. They only know the one that they don't want. And this is the thing. And one thing that you have to realize about the human brain is that it doesn't know how to process the negatives. You know, when you say I don't, the brain just takes out the don't and it focuses on
Not to
the
mention the subconscious mind doesn't even register negatives.
exactly.
So what you're saying is, I don't want a man who does this. What you're saying is, I want a man who does this.
you-
There's
you
no
see-
not. There's no negative when it
you
comes
see?
to the subconscious mind. So you should communicate through the positives.
Yeah, like everything should be said. Okay, yeah, everything should be said with a little bit of consciousness into it, because what you speak into the outside world is gonna come back to you. When you say that I don't want a man who does this and that, that's basically the kind of man you're gonna end up. That's why I always
Exactly.
ask every time when somebody complains about being single, blah blah blah. You know, they just got out of a relationship. The thing that I usually ask is, what is it that all the men that you have dated have in common? If you can identify what is it that they have in common, you'll see what you are attracted to.
That's true.
You know, and then you start reevaluating and asking yourself,
See if
like,
that's what you want
you
for real.
You see.
But if you just move on, the thing is, no, this is more to the realm of relationships. But the thing is, that's the problem, right? Because most people can't handle intimacy, right? And what most people, what a lot of people cannot handle, like a lot is probably okay. For me, I'd say 99.9% of the people can't handle is basically having someone leave them, right? And then leave them on their ass, right? And then they have to deal with that pain, right?
Yeah.
Because usually, right,
That one.
it's difficult, right? And it never fades off. There's usually residue, right?
Yeah.
But then, like, the quickest way to get rid of that pain is to introduce someone else into the equation, right? Because that makes you forget. It's kind of like keeping yourself busy, right? Filling your mind up, right? Then you can forget about it, and you don't go so deep into it, right? So basically, that's the danger with going into. That's why most people don't learn from relationships what they need to learn, right? Because it's the reason why people engage in polyamory, right? It's good that you know yourself and you know that you can't handle a certain level of intimacy with someone, that you have to spread it out, right? Because when you break up with someone, it's too much for you to handle, so you need to have other pillars, right? That's good that you know yourself that way.
Wow.
But it's also important that you study every relationship and improve from it.
Yeah.
Because it also contributes to the relationship going downhill, because you have different relationships, right? And obviously, naturally, the mind is always comparing, right? That's the nature of the mind. Always compares, always changing. When you look into, it's like when you talked about how you went into the girl's room and it was a home, right? When you enter a different girl's room, right, it's only natural that you're going to think, oh, shoot, this girl's room is different compared to the other girl, right? It's not, you don't have to try, right? And that's what happens when you juggle relationships in a rotation, right? And there's 4 different guys, right? And basically, there's this one guy who basically, like, let's say has a car and has a nice place, right? And his place is set up and it's like a home. It feels like home. That's a very dangerous thing, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you start to make assumptions.
Yeah.
Like, oh shoot, this feels like home, and you want to stay there all the time and all that. But you, like, if you got 4 guys, the guys probably got 4 girls too. So that puts you in a position where you're more likely to to be mistreated, because you're selling yourself a fantasy that is not being given to you. That's because of the space. So it's dangerous, right? And basically,
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, and basically, right? So you one of the guys, let's say there's this top guy, right? And he's got the car and the house, and you feel great, right? The moment that happens, right? And then let's say the next weekend, right? Or the same, let's say you visit him Wednesday, and on Sunday you have to go back to, let's say, Spusiso, right? And let's say you go back to Spusiso, and his place is not that.
Why do you like the name Sibusiso?
I just picked it. Let's say let's say his place is not that top notch. He's still coming up. Let's say he's a student and he lives in Rest, and at that time, he's going through a tough time, and let's say it's pretty chilled with him, right? The moment you walk into the room, right, you realize the mind makes comparisons immediately, right? It's like drop comparisons. Okay, immediately you don't feel like this guy is top notch, right?
Yeah, that's
probably
true.
has to do with you. You probably won't feel like giving him head that day, right? Because basically,
Why the fuck did you have to choose the
because
head?
basically, right, it's already compared like in your mind, and you forgot how to treat these people, right? And basically, you've lined them up, and you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And so basically, you're gonna treat them differently, right?
Yeah.
And that literally may be detrimental to you in the long run, because some people have a different tolerance for separate levels of treatment,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so you like that's what puts you in danger, right? And then when Spasiso drops off because he's number 4 and you don't care, right? And there are 2 more guys who are taking you on dates on the weekend and they look good, they got good accessories and all that. Spasiso drops off. You never learn anything from that relationship,
Gee.
and you don't know what's the primary factor, attracting you to certain kind of men. What you're doing is you're enjoying the process, right?
Yeah.
And basically, it's like it's a cycle you're sucked into and you enjoy and you don't want to get out of, right? And you're only gonna get saved the more the less busy you are.
Yeah.
And that's
Shit.
that's one way to waste a lifetime in terms of relationship building, because that cycle is gonna always, it's always gonna be fluctuating between
Yeah.
guys, and you never
Shit.
really learn, and then you use the next guy to get over the next guy, get over the next guy, and you do learn valuable things along the way, right?
But you
may
don't
end
learn
up
the things that you're supposed
exactly
to be learning. That's
exactly
the
you
thing.
may end up missing the fundamental things.
Yeah, the fundamentals. Because obviously with fundamentals, you have to go a little bit deeper.
Exactly.
You can just...
It takes a whole lot of thought.
Yeah.
And so, like, when the value of people is shifting, and you can discard people like that, right? And it's you forget, like, the end game of relationships.
Yeah.
You're trying to find number 1, right?
Yeah.
Also, the end game might be obstructive to your learning process, right? Because you're still busy trying to find number 1, and that's what you're focusing on, right? But different guys are dropping off, right?
Yeah.
And you're not learning anything from it.
True.
So it's just one thing that makes relationships a bit complex when you're dealing with multiple people and you're trying to grow yourself into more of more of an adult who's conscious and not just on autopilot. And
Shit. Today's episode was so fucking enjoyable. Like, at this stage, I'm not willing to stop, and then we are running at around 47 minutes.
damn, okay, we should probably stop.
Exactly. Like, when we got to 75 hours, for 35 hours, like, okay, let's just give it 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes passed, and then we're just like 47 now.
Damn.
So today's episode was on fire, bro. I don't want to lie to you. I don't even want to stop. Nah, but we have to leave because it's 4 o'clock right now. So, okay. So I'll just have to thank the people who are listening to the podcast and say thank you
hit
very
that like
much.
button, share the podcast.
Yeah, the most important part is to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's to share and make our other people aware about the Human in Me podcast, because we exist for one reason and one reason only, and that reason is to acquaint you with how a human being functions on a psychological level, so that it can inform you and help you become a better person to yourself. If you become a better person to yourself, there's no doubt that you'll be a better person to other people. That's
exactly.
that's just the least that we can do for the world
That's
right now. So thank you very much for staying with us for 49 minutes, and we hope that you are going to enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, catch you later with the Human in Me.
Hey, ta-da.